John and Darren's office chairs provided by GT Omega Racing. You can check them out at gtomegaracing.com.
Welcome to Inside Sim Racing. I'm John Sable alongside Darren Ganji, and today we are reviewing Forza Motorsport 6 single player mode. So we already gave you a pretty good walkthrough in our first 2 hours of what it's like to start the game. So now we're going to take it a little more from a day-to-day basis where you fire up your Xbox and jump on in and play.
Yeah, and before we get to that, we're planning a separate multiplayer show where we'll talk about the league mode, and we're planning a community multiplayer race, so we're not going to talk about multiplayer at all here. So first up, we're going to talk about the new user interface, and it's definitely cleaner and more attractive than it was in Forza 5. Easy to navigate and intuitive.
Yes. So with Forza Motorsport 6, the car selection is really good. Over 460 cars at launch, with more being added. And I think what makes it good is that there really aren't any duplicates.
Yeah, except for some race cars that have the same paint scheme. Whereas, Gran Turismo 6, I think there's over 1,000 cars, but that number is really inflated because there's a lot of the same, not just different paint schemes, but the same exact car, but maybe like the Japanese model and the American model. So there's really none of that, and I really don't think you need that many. Sure, more cars are better, but who is going to drive all 460 of those cars plus all the ones in the DLC?
Exactly.
So lots to offer.
Yep, and what I especially like is that there's lots of race cars.
Yeah.
Which, the road cars, that's all nice, but I like to drive race cars, and Forza Motorsport 6 delivers with pretty much all the series you could ever want.
And speaking of cars, lots you can do to customize. Very in-depth paint program integrated into it. I honestly don't know how some of these guys paint these cars, because it takes, you basically have to go pixel per pixel to really do a unique design. Doing the basics you can do, but some of these guys do some really elaborate designs, and it's pretty amazing. And it's cool to see that aspect of it built into the game, to where you can really customize your car, in the paint booth.
Yeah, I love seeing it there, but best of luck to whoever does it, because that is not easy.
And the great thing about it too is you go to buy a new car and you can pick a user created paint scheme and rate it, and so you might see the same paint scheme out there duplicated, but a lot of times I just go with a basic, and if I'm gonna customize it, I'll throw a number on it or something.
Yeah, me too.
And sometimes there's some Inside Sim Racing logos that people have uploaded into the game, so it's cool to see that.
So once you have your car purchased and painted up, you can take it to Forza Vista, which we've pretty much just called car porn.
Yeah, it is car porn. Some of the cars you're not able to fully explode though. And I'm not talking like Grand Theft Auto explode, I'm talking like open up the window or the doors and the hood and
I do hope that Grand Theft Auto explosion's coming in the 7th edition though.
Yeah, that'd be kind of cool.
That'd be kind of fun.
At least if you crashed the car, the thing just caught on fire, started smoking. That's one thing that's missing. Is, you know what? That has been missing from sim racing titles for a long time.
Yes.
Fire.
Yes.
No fire. Car manufacturers don't like seeing their cars up in flames.
No.
Yeah, Forza Vista is really cool because you can really look into the car, interior and everything. Look around, take pictures of the car, do a lot of different effects as far as the pictures. So yeah, it's a neat feature, and all the cars are in Forza Vista, where in the past they weren't.
Yeah, no, I love seeing the screenshots from Forza Vista because they look really good.
They do. You have to double take.
Yes.
Is that a real car or is that from a game?
Exactly. So before we jump in the car, let's look at the wheel setup. So to set up the wheel, head over to the options and the controller/wheel, and ourselves, we use layout 1, and then go ahead and press the X button and go to advanced settings, and here you can see the settings that we run. The only difference is on some cars we don't run 900 degrees of rotation.
Yeah, because some cars like the F1 or like the prototypes, you don't want to run 900 degrees of rotation.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right.
No, it doesn't. Basically, the only thing we do in this is take out all the dead zones, crank up the force feedback and vibration to max, and again, make those adjustments. And with the TX, you can make those adjustments on the fly. So you have 5 different presets, I think as low as 270 up to 900. Push the mode button, left or right on the D-pad, and it lets you adjust those on the fly. But if you do, and you're in a race or something, if you don't go back to the options screen, the rotation, the visual wheel rotation is off.
Yes.
So if you're wondering why that happens, you make those adjustments, that's why. Another thing you can do too on the wheel is you can add auto clutch. So you can run full manual with a clutch, and then if you push the A button and the mode button at the same time on the TX, the red light will start flashing, or it'll be green if you have your pedals inverted. Like if you're running T3PA Pros inverted or something, or even the T3PA's inverted, that light will start flashing, and you can just paddle shift and it will automatically clutch for you. Basically what it's doing is every time you push a paddle, it's hitting the A button like almost simultaneous to give you the clutch, because the clutch, I think, on the default setting is A.
Yeah, it's a nice little workaround if you have the TX. Now that we have the wheels set up, let's go ahead and jump in the car. And the first thing, you go to the Go Race tab in the menu, and you see a few different options for driving. You have Test Drive if you want to just go out there and practice with your car, maybe tune on a setup. You can do Free Play, which allows you to jump in a race either with your car or with a car you rented.
Mm-hmm. And then I think you can even rent and test drive too. I think you can rent in almost every mode.
Oh, really?
Pretty sure. Correct us if we're wrong, but I'm pretty sure you can rent in just about any mode. But yeah, in Free Play you can set up races. Test Drive is you're just by yourself, just test driving the car. And then there's Rivals mode, where you can race against different rivals. You can see their ghost, try to beat their time, get yourself on the leaderboard, which is a mode that I've really enjoyed. They had that in Forza 5, maybe even Forza 4 it originated. But I enjoy doing the Rivals.
And then you have your regular career mode, which, like I was just saying, is extensive. Pretty much one word to describe it: huge.
Yeah, and Turn 10 says that there's over 70 hours of unique gameplay, and I definitely agree with that. I'd say there's probably even more.
Yes. So career mode is pretty much called Stories of Motorsports, which is divided up into volumes, and each volume has a series. And inside the series, you can choose what car type you want to drive, which is a nice feature.
And then there's also showcase events within the career that unlock as you advance. Lots of different variety. Like the very first one is you run at Indy in the Indy car, and so on and so forth. Which those are a lot of fun too. They even have the Top Gear bowling.
Yep.
You knock down pins and stuff like that. So lots of stuff there in the career. And again, I would say there's probably even more than 70 hours.
Yes.
And if you rush through it and finish top 3 and everything, then maybe it is exactly 70 hours. But I think they're selling themselves short on that.
So now we're going to talk about what you can do in a regular race weekend in career mode. And first up, there are mods.
Which is new to Forza 6.
Yeah, and mods, I kind of like it. It's a little more of, I guess you can say, the arcade, half of a simcade.
Definitely.
Getting in.
Some are really arcade-ish too.
Some are, but pretty much they're upgrades that can be either applied to all the cars you drive, or to a specific car you drive, or maybe even a specific track. And it could be like increased drafting or increased
grip,
braking performance.
Yep.
And you have 3 slots that you can fill and either win mods through, finishing other events, or you can go and you can purchase mods.
Prize spins.
Yep.
You can win mods too. And there's another mod too that really, so we talked about them being arcade-ish, but there's one actually that makes it more sim-ish, and that's, it forces you in cockpit, and you get extra points, but it forces you to run cockpit view. You can't even change your view during the race if that mod is enabled. Also, during a race weekend, you can tune your setups, and we're going to touch more on that later. You can now practice, which is also new to Forza, where before you couldn't practice in a race like that. You basically had to go out of that session, go into a testing session, and then you could practice the track. But now you can practice, I think, unlimited. There's no limit to how much you practice in that, is there?
I don't think there is.
No.
You practice until you run out of gas. They don't give you very much gas.
Oh, okay.
But you can keep practicing as much as you want.
So yeah, there's that new practice mode, which is a nice feature. You can set the driver tar difficulty, assists, where you can make it as hard or as easy as you want. And we run with all assists off.
Yes.
Usually full manual, full clutch, no ABS, nothing. Simulated steering. So Yeah, and the harder it is, you set it, the more race bonus or credits you get at the end of the race. All right, so now we're going to get into the heart of Forza Motorsport 6 and talk about a variety of things that we usually talk about here on Inside Sim Racing: graphics, physics, sounds, all that kind of stuff. So first up, we're going to talk about the graphics and probably some of the best, if not the best, in all of consoles as far as the graphics goes. The shading, reflections, color palette, all spot on. And it's also running at 60 frames a second. Not locked, because I asked about this at E3, and it will adjust depending on how much is going on screen, but it averages pretty close to 60, to the point where I didn't see any flickering or frame rate hiccups. Did you?
No, I never saw any hang-ups. It always looked nice and smooth.
Yep, I agree.
And because the graphics are so good, we would love to see that engine on the PC.
I'd love to see this title on the PC.
That too.
I mean, sure, you can run through Windows 10 and that, but from what I understand, you can't run with a wheel and pedal set, so for us, it's pretty much worthless. But I would love to see this title transition to the PC. And I don't know why they wouldn't. I mean, Windows 10, Turn 10, Microsoft owns, it's a first-party company, so why wouldn't it go to the PC?
I feel like they would just sell more.
I do too.
But yeah, that graphics engine with a graphics card would look fantastic.
Anyway, the graphics are incredible.
Yes.
I think they're very well done, especially in the rain at night. All that kind of stuff looks really incredible.
So next up, we're going to talk about tracks, and again, like the graphics, the tracks have us very impressed.
Yes, a good majority of them are laser scanned, and they mirror tracks that we know 100% are laser scanned. And I went to Turn 10, I saw them working on Long Beach. They told me that not all the tracks are going to be laser scanned, because like ones that they've had in their library, if they were close enough, they were just going to upgrade them. But they're pretty spot on. I think you noticed Road Atlanta seemed a little off.
Yeah, out of all the tracks, and I drove pretty much most of the tracks, Road Atlanta was the only one that felt a little off to me, but all the other tracks feel, dead on.
Yeah, and the atmosphere is a little more realistic than 5, where there was maybe too much...
It's like a carnival going on in 5.
Too much carnival stuff going on in 5, where we're not seeing that as much in 6. I think there's too many barbecues in 6, where you see the puffs of smoke coming up.
I know, I'm afraid Lime Rock's going to start a forest fire.
Yeah, I don't recall ever seeing that many barbecues when I go to a race. Good amount of animation, so leaves, dirt, grass kicking up. Tires that move if you run into them.
Yeah, sometimes they move a little bit too much. But no, I will say my favorite animation so far is when you see the dust and the dirt being whipped around by the wind.
Yeah, blown across the track.
I've never seen that before, and it just looks awesome.
All right, so let's talk about physics.
Yeah, physics are a mixed bag for me. I mean, it's some cars come out of the box feeling good, and others not so much.
I would even say feeling great.
Yeah.
And some feel like crap.
Yeah.
And on the flip side of that, some of those ones that feel like crap, if you tune them properly, you can get them to feel better.
Correct.
And 460 cars plus with the DLC and stuff, I can see that being, the case. Not all of them are going to be perfect. And it's like that with any racing title. Some cars you get in and they feel like, oh man, this is how I imagine they feel. Or like I drove a Camaro that is, it's a 2002 Camaro, mine's a 97, but the suspension's almost identical. So, and I've driven a 2000 as well, so I know how those cars feel and how they react. And it felt pretty spot on to how my car reacts. And what about the GTI? I mean, as far as
the GTI felt how I would imagine if I was really pushing it. Especially with a front wheel drive car, how it kind of goes and just gives a big push off the corner. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of cars in the game that you can drive at 90%. And then when you kind of jump over that threshold, there's a bit of this four-wheel push that it's like you're just kind of along for the ride.
Or snap oversteer.
Well, that's right, yeah. Then you start trying to steer into it, and
some don't even have that four-wheel push. Some will just you start pushing it a little bit, and it just snap oversteers on you.
Yeah, like we said, the physics are kind of all over the board. We have some cars like the Camaro, which feel good, and
some of the old school stuff felt great too.
Yeah,
I was really sliding it around, and it felt like I expected it to feel. But you hated the Audi R18.
Yeah, some of the race cars, I feel like overall compared to the production cars, tend to struggle a little bit. And that Audi R18 prototype, it just kept on pushing. It just did not feel good, and I was not happy with it.
Something else with the fix is when you're running the full manual with the clutch, if you don't nail clutching it off the line when that goes 3, 2, 1, 0, the car just like, it starts like stuttering. And I've never felt a car do that in real life. I've driven lots of manual cars. I've even driven manual race cars. I drove a Legends car. I drove a Formula Ford. And then I've driven my Camaro extensively on the track. And I've stalled my Camaro. I'm not going to deny that I've never stalled it. But the bottom line is you don't apply enough gas and you don't slip the clutch enough, it's just going to stall. It's not going to go. You know what? So the bottom line is if you're able to go, it's just going to start spooling up.
Exactly.
So that, in my opinion, that's a bug, and I'd like to see them address that. But that's really one of my only big complaints about the physics. Other than they're just kind of, all over the place. Some are great, some are good, some are really bad.
Yeah. And even besides the transmission coming off the line that's kind of goofy, all the cars have this kind of like front wheel drive launch going on, where it feels like the front tires are propelling you, even if you're driving a rear wheel drive car. And I don't know if that's maybe just because a lot of people are driving with a gamepad and
we're getting those effects.
Just smashing it, but yeah, it feels awkward when you're driving with a wheel and pedals.
And speaking of feel, let's talk about some force feedback. For the most part, it feels good across the board. And we tried it with the Thrustmaster TX, Logitech G920, and the Fanatec CSW V2. And overall, I thought it felt better than Forza 5 and Forza Horizon 2, and heavier.
Yes.
Like more detail. But yeah, overall, the force feedback feels really good.
Yeah, I'm really happy with it. I mean, I think it's the perfect strength for a title like this. Going a little more in depth into physics, we're going to talk about braking, and the brakes felt good once you had the wheel calibrated. I know there's a couple times I was like, it's too
touchy.
It's too touchy.
And it's almost too touchy even when you do calibrate it on some cars.
Yeah.
But bottom line is, in any of the wheels that you run, make sure you press the brake all the way down the first time you race. And you look at the meter, and you'll see it only goes about halfway until the gas, you're already full throttle.
Yes.
So that'll calibrate automatically. But the brake, make sure you go to full brake before you race, and then maybe restart your race. When you get started, don't go online, and just go to a multiplayer race, because your braking you're gonna need to calibrate it. So another fix for that too is if you modify your brakes and get the brake upgrade, get the race brakes, because again, some of them are still a little touchy. You can change the amount of brake pressure. I'd honestly like to see them lower the brake pressure, because you go into like some VIP rivals events and you're running rented cars. Rented cars you can't adjust at all. You can't upgrade them, you can't tune them. So I'd like to see them lower that, and maybe that's another thing that's inherent because of a gamepad. But the brakes are a little too touchy across the board. And again, go to the tune screen, and there's a brake pressure, and it's right at the middle at 100. I lowered it to 80 in that Camaro I was driving, the 2002 Camaro. It felt perfect. So yeah, there's a little tip to adjust those brakes if you feel like they're too touchy.
Next up, we're going to talk about the physics of the transmission, and there's good things and bad things going on here. The good thing with the transmission, when you run it with a clutch, the game really makes you clutch it. Mm-hmm. Like you really have to use it. But there are times it seems like, I know we had this, where the game will grind the gears at you.
I think that's fixed.
You think that's fixed?
I don't know if you heard me, because you might have been deep into something else today, but I was slamming gears today, and I wasn't hearing that grind noise. Even though in our first 2 hours, people were like, "You guys don't know how to shift." And it's like, I'm thinking, I'm shifting this exactly the way I've always shifted Forza and anything else. It was given like a grind noise. That didn't happen today to me.
Yeah, and that's
no matter how hard I shifted.
Well, and that's true. I mean, I was even driving it yesterday, and I didn't seem to be having that issue. And I don't know, partially I was thinking maybe I was just doing it better, but yeah,
I think they fixed it.
Okay, well,
I think that was because we weren't damaging the transmission. We'd look, and it was, for some reason, the transmission was damaged at 4% as soon as we started the race.
Yeah.
Without even moving. So, yeah, I think they fixed that. But another thing too, one of our complaints, we talked about this a little earlier, is that they make you clutchless cars, which it's nice to have that cheat on the TX.
If you have a TX.
If you have a TX, but yeah, if you don't have a TX, or I think there's a way to cheat it on the gamepad too, but anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It drives me nuts. I mean, it's they want you to clutch a Ferrari LaFerrari, and there's only a gas and brake pedal in that car.
Yeah.
There is no clutch pedal. There's nothing.
paddle shifters.
There's nothing I can do. So I think that's an oversight that needs to get fixed.
I agree. Speaking of an oversight that needs to get fixed, let's get on to cameras.
Yes.
Lots of different camera angles that pretty much can make anybody happy, except for us sim racers. Guys like us that want to drive in the cockpit. Should we give them the example? So we took some pictures today, and we feel like this is the seating position in Forza. We forgot to grab wheels. We feel like this is the seating position in Forza, where you're looking at the whole wheel.
You are. You can see the entire wheel.
And that is not realistic. And again, I think it's going back to the majority of the people that play this are on a gamepad. So, they want to see the wheel moving when they're making the, adjustments on the gamepad. Whereas we both went into our real cars today and took some pictures. So here's a picture from my in-car cockpit. I basically put the phone on top of my head and took this picture. This is from my Camaro. And then John, you went into your GTI and did the same thing.
Yep.
Now, we then put our seats back like we just showed you, and these are the pictures that we took from that view, which looks identical to the in-car view in Forza.
Yes.
Now, why they have not fixed this or made... One of these recent updates said, we fixed the field of view on some cars.
Yes.
Well, the ones we drove didn't really get fixed. They're still sitting way too far back. I do not like looking at the entire wheel. That's just not realistic. And Forza 4 allowed you to adjust it. You had to trick the system and pretend like you were running in triple monitors. And then you could adjust the field of view as if you were running in a triple monitor setup, and then if you went back out, it stuck. There's no adjustment. Gran Turismo has it, where you can go narrowest, where you can move and the field of view is pretty realistic in Gran Turismo.
Yeah, and now pretty much every title out there has it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Project Cars has full adjustability.
Project Cars, Codemasters added it into their F1 into Dirt Rally.
Yep.
You got to be able to adjust your seat. And Forza Motorsport 6 doesn't have that, and not only do they not have it, you're driving like you're sitting on the back wing.
Yeah.
When I went in my GTI and I put the seat back for that photo, I was pretty much in the back seat of my car. So clearly something's not right there, and they really gotta add that option to the game.
Well, and some of the cars have really small windshields, like my Camaro, for example. I don't have a huge field of view coming out of my windshield because it's really slanted. But it's nowhere near as bad when I'm sitting in the seat. But if I lean the seat back, I feel like I'm gangsta driving,
Exactly. And then it's even worse when you're in a race car and driving like that R18. Already has terrible visibility, but you are looking at, it's like you're in a submarine.
Yeah. You look through a periscope.
So it needs to get fixed. And on that subject, would also like to see them be able to have an option where you can turn off the hands and the steering wheel.
Yes.
Because for a lot of us used to sim racing, that's what we do. We find it distracting.
Well, I don't need to see another wheel.
Exactly.
And I don't need to see extra hands.
And not only on top of that, the hands and wheels in Forza, there's a little bit of delay. Now, I don't feel the delay in the car input as far as my steering.
Input lag.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't see an input lag there, but there's a visual input lag.
Yeah.
And, I don't want to see that. And also, the hands can only turn so far.
180 degrees, I think.
Yeah, so it's not keeping up with you. So in the end, it's just distracting.
And it's not like this stuff can't be done on the console. Project Cars does all of it.
Yes.
You can adjust field of view, seating position, turn off the wheel, and all that stuff in Project Cars. So there's no reason why Forza couldn't offer this.
Exactly.
So I've been bitching about it since Forza 5. And people are going, it's not that big a deal. You know what it is to us? I can't stand some of those. And the next position up, which is the hood cam, I wouldn't, and people say, why are you driving from the hood? It's because I can't see out of the car. But I would like that view to be at the edge of the windshield versus on the front bumper.
Yeah, it seems like it's moved forward in 6, and that's almost as difficult to drive too, because it's just an awkward spot, and I have a really hard time hitting my marks from that camera.
I do too. Please, turn 10. Please add a field of view adjuster somehow, even just if it's 2 or 3 adjustments, like narrowest, just like Gran Turismo 6. Can't imagine it'd be that difficult. On to AI and Drivatar technology. So basically, and actually the AI, there's actually just standard AI in the showcase events. You're not driving against Drivatars in there. But everything else you're driving against these Drivatars, which is basically taking data from everybody in the world. And specifically, if I see John's guy, it's going to take data from him. So if he hits perfect corners, good corners, if he wrecks a lot, his characteristics are going to be applied to that driver. And they're okay. Some are okay, but then some of it's just horrible.
Yeah.
Some of it's bumper cars.
I think if I had to give it a grade, I would give it a C overall.
Which falls into that okay category.
And yeah, it's you have good races, and then there are bad races. If there's some really tight corners, the AI gets a bit confused. One thing that I didn't care for is even when you move up to higher AI difficulty, like Pro and Unbeatable, they don't seem to reduce the amount of mistakes they make. I was in an Unbeatable race, and I think I was running 4th, and I ended up winning the race because guys crashed in front of me, just by themselves driving off the road.
And I don't mind seeing the occasional crash, but yeah, if you're going from 4th to 1st, that's a little too much.
Especially in Unbeatable. If it's a lower class and the AI aren't as good and they run off road more, that's fantastic.
As long as they're not running into you.
Exactly.
And you can adjust on Forza 6, and this is new to Forza 6, you can adjust the aggression. So you can turn how aggressive they are on or off, which seem to help.
Yeah, I definitely like running with that on.
Yeah, and the bottom line is the race could be won or lost in the first corner, and that's not how racing should be. I mean, I guess it is to an extent because you see major turn 1 wrecks all the way up into Formula 1.
Yes.
But it seems to be the case more often in Forza.
Yeah, Forza, you really, especially when you start mid-pack and you have to finish in the top 3, you really got to get through a good chunk of those guys in that first corner, or it gets strung out and it gets a lot more difficult.
Yep. We also feel that so there's 8 different levels of AI, but we feel that Unbeatable, so if you put it on a scale from 1 to 10, Unbeatable is like 11.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is called Unbeatable.
Yes.
So, but I've beat Unbeatables.
Yeah.
Without them crashing out. And it takes a lot of practice and tuning to be able to beat those guys. And you may need to have a better car, in that particular class, which I've had to and been able to beat them. And then you go to Pro, and Pro should be about an 8, and it's like a 6.
Yes.
Pro is almost easily beatable.
Yeah, I'd be much more okay if Unbeatable was really unbeatable unless you put really the time into it. If Pro was more difficult.
Yes.
Right now with Pro, I think, like our level of driving, Pro isn't hard.
No.
Pro isn't hard, Unbeatable's very hard.
Pro's only hard for me if I have an underclass car and I don't know the track.
Yes.
And or the car combo. Once I know it, Pro's a cakewalk to me. I'm usually ahead of the whole field within the first couple laps.
Yeah, so I think that could be better balance between the 8 different AI levels. Next, we're going to talk about the heads-up display in-game, and overall, really like it. Lots of good information that you can toggle through. But one piece of information that I really like to see is the distance from me to the drivers around me, specifically behind me, because it's difficult to know where they're at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of times where the mirrors are out of view, and I've driven down in the corners and just been dive bomb for someone I had no idea who was there.
Some of you may go, well, you guys are complaining about the field of view. If you move the field of view forward, you're not going to see the mirrors. How about a virtual mirror?
That too.
So you can, like a lot of titles offer virtual mirrors, because if you don't have triple screens, a lot of times you're not going to see those side mirrors. So it's nice to have that. And it'd be nice to add a look left and look right.
Yes.
You know, if you are, able to move the cockpit forward to where you could look over at that mirror or, see the car next to you. So yeah, the HUD does offer a lot of good data too. You can see the tires and the suspension moving and how much input you're doing on your wheel and pedal set, but that takes away from the driving though on the other hand too, because you just got too much data in your face. Next up, we're going to talk about sounds, and as usual, Forza across the board, the car sounds are amazing in my opinion. I think they're very well done. My only gripe, or our only gripe really, is that the other cars around you are too loud. And it really, a lot of times, takes away from your ability to drive. You can't hear what your car's doing. You can't hear the tires squealing. You can't hear the engine revving when you need to shift. So other than that, I think they're great.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, this is, besides the sound of your own car, everything else is nice, and would really like to see them update that. Because that was an issue in Forza Motorsport 5, and it carried over to 6.
Yep. Almost, I think it got a little worse. Maybe because there's more cars on the track, so we're hearing more buzzing.
Maybe. So now let's talk about damage, and I think overall for the type of title that Forza Motorsport 6 is, the damage is well done.
I'd like to see more, but yeah, I think it's done.
Yeah, it does allow you to do bumper cars.
Yeah.
So I would like to see that knocked down a bit, but if you really go in there and hit someone, I mean, your race is done.
Well, the other thing I like too about the damage is that, if you over rev it, you miss shift, you get transmission and engine damage too. So, and I like that a lot. It really makes you stay on your toes on those cars that you're manually shifting. So yeah, I think it's well done, but I'd like to see probably a little more physical damage to the outside of the car.
Yes.
That really, took away from the performance.
So one of the biggest new updates to the game is the implementation of wet weather. And it's pretty crazy in the fact of how good it looks and also how difficult it is.
Yes. You run through a puddle and it's pulling the wheel out of your hands and the car is turning. And especially if you're on the throttle. I mean, you have to like coast through those or slow down. And I've noticed that hydroplaning will take place the faster you go. If you're under like 50 miles an hour, the car won't hydroplane. It will maybe a little bit, but not like it will if you're above 50 and even faster. Then it's like you're going across ice.
Yeah, I mean, I know other sims and games out there have had rain, but this is really the first time when I hit a puddle and I feel that wheel, turn to the left or turn to the right. I've never really felt that before.
Hydroplaning.
Exactly, hydroplaning, and so it's really cool. With that said, there are some puddles out there that are lakes.
Well, and it's almost to the point where would that race have been canceled? They're so bad. Or postponed because they got so bad. The other thing I would have liked to have seen was dynamic weather, where the weather's changing throughout the race. The puddles may dry up, throughout the race, that's realistic. I mean, you'll see that, especially if the rain stops. The track will start to dry and a groove will start to develop. A dry groove will start to develop. I would have liked to have seen that. Other than that, I think they did a great job. How it puddles on the windshield, how the windshield wipers wipe it away, and just how it feels physics-wise. I think they did a great job. And they put rain tires on.
They did?
Yeah, so I think it's well done. And another quick feature too, they added night racing. That's the first time they've had night racing in a Forza title, and I thought they did a great job of that. I would have liked to have seen transitions, day to night transitions, versus just being pitch black night. But I like the lighting and the effects. They wanted it to feel like you're getting almost tunnel vision.
Oh, and it's like that, especially like driving around Spa,
Yeah.
where it's super dark.
Yeah. So I think they did a great job with that.
So we already touched on tuning a little bit with the physics, but let's get a little more in depth into it. So let's say you had a race where you didn't finish top 3 and you had to go back and do it again. Can you tune your car to get you fast enough to finish in the top 3 and move on to the next race? And this was a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, the first good thing to report is the cars are tunable. They do adjust to adjustments you make, which is positive. For example, the Subaru BRZ, just straight out of the gate, we didn't really like that car.
No snap oversteer.
Exactly. You touch the brakes and that rear end was just taking out. So I went in there and I did pretty much the only adjustment you can do on production cars, which was adjust the tire pressures.
Without upgrading suspension and stuff.
Exactly. And I upped the front PSI about 3 to 4 pounds on the front tires, and it solved it. And I was able to run 0.8 of a second faster around Lime Rock.
Yeah, the adjustments definitely make a difference. And like we were talking about, across the board with the cars, some feel great out of the box and some don't. Those some that don't can be tuned to feel great. So you got that BRZ to feel pretty damn good, didn't you?
Exactly.
Just with some minor tuning.
Exactly. But on the other hand, I started tuning on that R18 I couldn't stand out of the box, and it didn't get any better.
Now I'm curious, did you download any tunes?
I didn't download tunes on that one. I did it on the BRZ
Okay.
to check that out, which that's a really cool feature that you can go out there in the community and download people's tune. I will say, a lot of the BRZ tunes were just to make it drift more.
Drift cars, yeah. Yeah, that's probably a popular drift car. And we touched on this a little bit, upgrade shop. You can upgrade just like you have been able to in prior Forza titles. I don't think there's really things that they've added. You take weight out of the car, add air cleaners, exhaust, brakes, suspension, and make everything, the suspension fully tunable, brakes fully tunable, roll bars. So lots of upgradability and tunability, and which upgradability or the upgrades add a lot of extra tunability too.
Yes.
Where you can fully tune the car like it's a race car.
Yeah, no, I think the most difficult thing about the upgrades is, like you mentioned earlier, it's really easy to upgrade your car out of your class. So you got to really keep that in mind when you're doing that.
Tires can make a huge difference too. You're starting with street tires, and you can move all the way up to slicks and even drag slicks if you're driving a drag car, and those can make huge. You can get huge gains, and your performance index goes up greatly by changing those tires. So, then that really goes back to the physics in 460 cars. If you think about it, you got 460 cars, and then think about how many different possibilities you have on each car, from just changing out the tires, changing out the brakes, changing out the suspension, and then tuning it. So there's a wide range of things you can do to each car, which makes sense that not all of them are perfect.
Yes.
I mean, that would probably take 10 times the development team that they have to make all 460 cars feel exactly like they're supposed to. And I also got a feeling that most of them feel fine with a gamepad.
Probably.
Because most gamepad players are probably playing with assists.
Yes.
Where we're taking all that stuff off and driving it, as raw as possible. So I think we've gone over everything and more. We may have missed some stuff. Again, we didn't talk about multiplayer, but now it's going to be time for our final thoughts. John, why don't you start?
Yeah, I think overall, even though I know we've beaten up the game on certain aspects, I think overall it's probably the best simcade game to ever come out. I mean, overall, the driving and the force feedback and graphics and sounds and all the different cars and the tracks that are really spot on.
Career mode,
and I just think overall it's a great package. And that's the one thing, in career mode, I did a lot of the Gran Turismo back in the day, and you can kind of get that grind that people were talking about.
Yeah.
And I feel like this career mode does a good job where it allows you to select the type of cars you want to drive to move to the next level.
And if you wanted to go grind through every single one of those, you could.
You can. If you want to get those, 70 hours or whatever it was.
It's going to be more than that if you grind it through every single thing before advancing.
Yeah, and it's nice to kind of have the offshoots that are those special events to kind of break things up and maybe get you into a race car quicker. I will say one thing that, and you touched on this earlier, I don't care for having to finish in the top 3 in every race.
Yeah, we talked about that. I don't like that at all.
Because it makes me drive really over my head. And I know, like, on other normal sim racing titles, if I have a good race and I finish mid-pack, I feel fulfilled.
Especially if you're with a good bunch of drivers. Yeah, you do feel good. And yeah, it's just, that turns it more into a grind though too.
Yes.
Which I would agree with that 100%. So is that all your final thoughts? Then I'll add mine, which you pretty much hit everything I was gonna say.
Well, my only other thing is I wish money was a little more limited, I would say. Kind of like Forza's like here. take
Especially
it all.
with the prize spins.
Exactly.
And the prize spins really make it more on the arcade side too. But I've said this about other Forza titles, and and people will even complain, well, why are you guys covering this? This isn't, this isn't inside arcade racing. This isn't an arcade racing title. If you want arcade racing, go to Need for Speed or Rocket League.
Yeah.
Go to a title like that for pure arcade, where is this a true sim? As far as the consoles go, I think Project Cars has it beat. I think even F1 2015 has it beat as far as it being more towards a true sim. But I've always called these like track day titles, where this is more of like taking your car to a track day and being able to take all these different cars. And sure, they have tons of race cars, and you can run, I think the longest distance races you can run 4 hours, and you saw a showcase event that was an endurance race. It was 125 miles at Nordschleife. But I would like to see like Forza Racing, like the Forza Racing, maybe like the PC title could be that way, where they make it more of a hardcore sim. I mean, they've got all the components where they could do that, and I love being able to tune and upgrade the cars. I have a lot of fun with that, especially if you create your own multiplayer race and limit the performance index and say you can only run rear-wheel drive cars and only from this era. It's a lot of fun finding which car will fit into that slot and be the the best bang for the buck. But overall, I think it's a great title. I think if you're looking for one title to purchase for this Christmas season coming up, I'd say Forza 6 should be on the list.
Oh yeah, I think it's totally worth the $60 or whatever it costs. It's hours and hours and hours and hours of entertainment.
Yes. So yeah, beyond that 70 hours of career mode, you've got rivals, you've got leagues online, you've got just the standard multiplayer, just tons of other stuff. And then if you're not even into racing, if you're a painter, there's lots of different things you can do on the painting side. If you're a tuner, you can tune. So I think it's just a really deep title. And I think Forza just keeps getting better year after year. Forza 5 was kind of lacking compared to Forza 4, but I think Forza 6 snags back as far as what I'm expecting out of the Forza franchise. I think that's going to wrap it up.
I think so. So, thank you for watching Inside Sim Racing and our review of Forza Motorsport 6. For Darren Ganji, I'm John Sable. See you next time.
Pretty much every other manufacturer's represented.
Yep.
Even Nissan.